You're listening to Overwatch Contenders Daily, your path to daily news, scores, and insights into the Overwatch League stars of tomorrow. Here's your host, LemonKiwi.
Fans, hope you're having a wonderful Wednesday because mine is going great. This is Overwatch Contenders Daily and I'm your host LemonKiwi. Why I'm doing so great is because this will be the biggest video of this channel, both lengthwise and because of the names I've brought on. I have Team Canada representatives to talk about the roster they've just announced. We got head coach Jayne. You might recognize him from his streams and educational YouTube channel. You got assistant coach Renanthera, formerly Toronto esports coach and now coach for Mayhem Academy. And you have community lead KarQ, which both has an awesome stream and an awesome YouTube channel for One to Puras, where I go all the time to learn stuff. So these guys will come on to talk about why they picked this final roster, comparing the strengths of everybody on each role, what are they focusing on in scrims, and who is the team to beat at World Cup. But before we get into my interview, let's go over some very quick Contenders news. So in North America, Team Envious has acquired Envision's roster and spot in Contenders. So super happy to see the return of Envious name back in Overwatch. In Australian news, top Contenders team Darksided have acquired DPS player Yuki and support player Cantus along with John Galt as their new coach. And that's it for Contenders news. And to remind you guys, this announcement for Team Canada went out just recently, and their final 7 roster will consist of XQC, Note, Agilities, Surefour, Banny, and Rolf. And their sister B team that they will be scrimming against, also part of Team Canada, will consist of Shane, Kevin, Za, Keller, Joe Meister, and Crimzo. But now that you guys are updated on all your news and the Team Canada roster, let's get into my interview now with the representatives of Team Canada. I'd like to start this interview by thanking the representatives of Team Canada for joining us. I'll start with Coach Justin Jayne Conroy, Community Lead Nathan KarQ Chan, and Assistant Coach Ronald Renanthera Lee. So, how's it going, guys? I know the deadline is approaching for you guys to pick your final roster.
Well, technically, I suppose the deadline passed by yesterday, but, I always like the sound that deadlines make as they whoosh by.
Oh, God.
We'd wanted to announce the roster on July 1st, of course, that being Canada Day, but unfortunately it's best to get the right answer a little bit later than rushing in the wrong answer. So roster still be to announce, but we're pretty close, just looking for one more scrim block to finish off the answer. But thank you for inviting me on. I'll let the other two speak their piece as well.
How's it going, guys?
You wanna go first, Nathan?
Sure. Yeah, I'm doing great. Just been enjoying the role. Community lead. I also get to be part of the scrims, watch, and I even participated in one block when we were short a few players around the first time around. But with everything coming together finally, I hope we're going to go out with some big celebration in terms of our players, and hopefully we do well in our group stages.
Awesome.
I've been having a lot of fun working with these wonderful gentlemen. They've been so gracious as to give me their SR when we play ranked because they're so welcoming. Not being officially welcomed on the roster, they figured they'd throw some games on my behalf. But it's been great. I'm in LA now, so I'm no longer in our wonderful maple syrupy land of the free. But it's nice to have them here and work with them and learn from them. It's been wonderful.
Well, yeah, congrats again on your move to Mayhem Academy from Toronto esports. So no longer Canadian, but you're still part of Team Canada, right?
Honorary Canadian.
So let's get into the nitty gritty. So Team Canada, at least to my knowledge, was the only World Cup team to hold open tryouts, which opened to any Canadian that had a 4.3K average SR in season 9 and 10 to participate. So why did you guys choose to do open tryouts? And did you end up discovering a new, as in non-Overwatch League or non-Contenders talent?
So my experience with Boston came in really handy for our open tryouts because that's how they actually operated when they were building their roster. We figured, listen, we don't want to play favorites. We don't want to, just pick our friends or people or the popular opinion. So we decided, we give everyone a try. up to like a certain bar. We set that bar to 4.3 because typically that's where top 500 more or less typically begins. And we actually had quite a large list of applicants. We had, I think it was almost in total around 80-ish people show up, which is rather large for Canada, at least in comparison to, I think, the United States. And we ran through just about all of them and kind of picked from those of which kind of met our standards and fulfilled our needs looking at these applications. And I think after all the tryouts were done, one made it through, correct?
That's correct, yes.
Yeah, and Jayne can maybe speak about him. He's more knowledgeable than I am.
Yeah, so the individual who actually made it through open tryouts was a guy by the name of Kevin, who I've actually played on a team with, at least, I suppose, middle of last year. He's always been, a very good player, 4600. He's in Alberta, same as me, and we've played on some LAN teams together, and I actually had to bug him to apply. He's a fantastic player, and he's known for being a hit scan player, but he actually tried out for the off-tank position. He's a pretty flexible player, and since he knew he would be competing against Keller and Surefour, he went for the off-tank role himself. But, with my, I suppose, previous friendship with him, I pretty much took a back seat in terms of judging him during the playoffs. Ren, KarQ, myself, we all have our slight biases. So anytime we ran into that situation where, there was a player in the tryout who Ren had previously coached or KarQ was friends with or something like that, we always let the other people on the committee voice their opinions, and we stayed silent on the matter. So I was quite pleased to, hear that everyone else shared my opinion that Kevin was, top of the line. And even once we started scrimming with the Overwatch League players and the Contenders players brought in, it was more than one person was like, "Who's this Kevin guy? He's doing pretty well. He's holding his own." And I think that even during the scrims that we broadcasted last Friday, it was pretty clear that even on the B team roster, Kevin was one of the guys that was holding his own even against the best Canada has to offer. So that was pretty exciting, at least from my side.
I do want to say, obviously, Kevin was one who made it through, but there was a ton of talented players that we got to take a look at that weren't necessarily on any OWL or Contenders teams. Some of them have been on their collegiate teams for their local city or university. But, not to take anything away from Kevin, but there was a lot of talent, but we had to make the tough decisions, and it was great that we had a lot of people on the committee, not only Ren and Jayne, but we also had Sword, Danny, and
Danny,
a few
who did
others.
A lot of stats work too.
Right. We broke it down. We saw some of the players based on the raw stats, the opinions of everybody else in the committee who was there helping us, and at the end of it, Kevin made it through, but there was a ton of talent, and we're very happy with what Canada has to offer.
A surprising amount of talent, actually. A lot of them came from like Manitoba.
Yes, for some reason, Overwatch is really popular in Manitoba.
Yeah, there's like so many of our good players come from Manitoba, and we just didn't expect it. We thought like Toronto would make sense and whatever, but yeah, it was a pleasant surprise.
I've never even been to Manitoba.
Do we have anybody from the Maritimes? I can't
Dawson,
recall.
DTH, I think was Newfoundland.
Yeah, a couple.
Yeah.
Hey, but that's really awesome that you guys discovered even people without names yet that we might see in Contenders. And I don't watch a ton of TESPA, but I mean, you guys probably know these guys. But and also, TESPA, oh yeah, and good that you guys kept it objective. Although you probably brought on some of your friends and tried to keep it as even as possible. But Canada surprisingly has a decent amount of Overwatch League players. I just interviewed Team Australia, who only had Custa for Overwatch League, and you guys have also a ton of good Contenders players. But let's go on to describe or get into the nitty-gritty of why you chose the players on at least the bigger roster and compare them apples to apples on their individual roles. So starting with the tanks, we got main tanks XQC and Jayne, and on flex or off tanks Note and Kevin. So we'll start with you, Jayne. Tell me about the differences in their play style. How was their synergy with their paired tank, and what other strengths decided why they were picked?
Well, at least we'll start with the main tanks, I guess. XQC, actually taking this even a step farther back, we had to approach this a little bit differently because the Overwatch League players right now, in some ways I'm actually envious of people like Team Australia because right now I have the absolutely fantastic task of trying to schedule scrim blocks around the players who are currently preparing for playoffs, which is difficult, I suppose. Yeah. So the vast majority of the trials actually didn't involve any of the Overwatch League players and XQC himself. He's a very busy individual. He has a stream himself, and he's also very highly regarded. So him, as well as some of the others from Contenders, didn't have to go through the full tryout process because it was going to be a large amount of time. And if they don't have to do it because they're going to make it at least to the final round anyway, we'll give them a bye. So I actually haven't seen a lot of the Overwatch League players, including Rolf, Crimzo, and XQC yet. I'm still wanting to see more, and we've had, unfortunately, few scrim blocks with them. But from what I have seen between XQC and Jayne, they are very dramatically different in terms of the way they play. Jayne is really good at calming pretty much everything he does, and he also works based on kind of what team resources that can be put into him. But he can, I suppose, get to the point where he calms everything, tries to kind of put everything
like polar
on his
opposite
shoulders.
of XQC.
Not polar opposite of
not
XQC, because XQC does
He's
talk
out there.
about what he's doing, and XQC has this desire to basically solo carry, and I guess that comes from, I don't know how many hours that man has put into ranked,
Right.
but he wants to put his team on his back, and he goes for the hero plays, and majority of the time it works out. But when you are trying to do things based on how Overwatch League Winston players, how the meta around Winston has evolved in the Overwatch League, which is much more around like denying space, pressuring snipers, and not going for the big actions that actually lead to eliminations. Well, that's not the way XQC is playing right now. That's not really an error, it's just a different play style. And if people like Surefour, for example, are looking for that play style from their main tank or used to that play style, well, it's not quite there yet. So their comms are different, their play style is different. Jayne kind of works around his team, and he likes to lead them, in terms of working together, whereas XQC wants to drag his team to victory whether they like it or not. In terms of Note and Kevin, Note is another one that I haven't seen a lot of yet. I've watched his stream, I've watched his Overwatch League games, but in terms of actually in the scrim, I haven't paid a lot of attention to him, mostly because his slot is basically secured. And when we are trying to put so much effort into determining the slots that are a little bit closer, Note hasn't exactly been at the forefront of my attention. But Kevin, with his play style, is a lot more, it's not like a follower, it's kind of like a shadow. He really likes supporting other people on his team and is usually silent on comms until there's either an opportunity that he sees. So if there's an opportunity to turn a losing fight around, he'll go for it, and he'll comment very aggressively. If the main caller dies or there's a emptiness in the comm, Kevin will fill the emptiness and kind of like pick up the slack. But other than that, Kevin is just perfectly happy to follow along with Jayne. And considering Shane's tendency to basically just calm everything himself, they work really well together. And they have surprisingly good synergy between the two of them for having never played together before.
Mm-hmm. Anyone else
Yeah,
would like to add to that?
I just wanted to note on the Kevin and Jayne thing, just because of Shane's kind of calming style, you don't want to have all 6 players have that sort of similar communication style, or else there's going to be too many clashes of just calls, and it clogs the comms, and people can't actually hear what they need to hear because everyone's, narrating what they're doing. And I feel like Jayne kind of has a habit of doing that. Not to say it's bad, but if everybody said, I'm moving here, I'm moving there, like when it's important, it's good. But let's say everybody's saying, I'm moving left, I'm moving right here, and it goes a bit chaotic in the comps, to say the least. So I do like the way how Kevin is kind of like a shadow, and that's perfectly fine. Just wanted to say that.
Yeah, to chime in just a little bit, Jayne said initially, we haven't been able to watch a lot of the OWL players, and we're still looking to see more, but their first internal we played was actually on stream, and played against our top 6 for what we thought would be the B team or the sister team. And it wasn't a question of whether or not the OWL guys deserve their spot on Team A. So although we see less of them, their play is still a cut above, and they've still earned their spots. It's not like they kind of skipped the line, although they did have a bye technically. They played against people we thought were the best, and out of that selection, they were still quite a bit further ahead. So we have work to do on both sides, and we're hoping that they could teach each other and work together as a cohesive unit, not so much like a clicky pros here and like aspiring pros there or something like that.
Well, it's great that you guys have like a main team and a sister team that you can compare. And then I heard like even a bit on Jayne's stream that you guys are switching one player with the other, having like that, I guess your contenders team, one of the players go to the main roster and see how that works. So that's great that you can compare apples to apples in that sense.
I'll give you a little, I suppose, a juicy tidbit for this evening's scrims, which will not be streamed. But XQC actually requested to play on the B team for tonight's scrim because he wanted to see how much he could carry given fewer resources. So I thought that was an interesting request. So we're going to see the answer to to how much of a difference XQC can make on the B team, and if Jayne can, fill what are probably the largest shoes there are to fill in competitive Overwatch by replacing XQC on the A team. So unfortunately, these scrims won't be streamed. But strimmer, please. No, they won't be streamed, but maybe we'll release recordings of them someday.
Yeah,
Who knows?
maybe.
Who knows?
Well, you've been streaming a couple of even XQC has, and you've shown a couple of the tryout looks, and everyone's been keeping it pretty a secret, but you guys are very open on what you're doing with the team.
Yeah, we want to make sure. Go ahead, Ron.
Thank you. Well, the way we see it is, the World Cup is a bit ways away, and we don't even know, what the meta will be, what sort of impacts will like certain new characters have on, like in symmetry rework and stuff will have on the way we play the game. So as far as we see it, this is a glimpse into the life of Team Canada that won't really hurt us too much like moving forward. And it's good for publicity and for getting fans engaged and for giving some of our lesser known players some exposure while we can without having to be too secretive. And we want to give them that chance to kind of engage with the public.
It's been great to watch, and this moves us on now to the DPS players. You got some big names. You got Agilities, Mangachu, Za. You got Projectile Specialists who are obviously able to flex to different things. You got Keller and Surefour, mostly hit scan. But besides how talented these players are, because we could talk for days how great they are, what kind of... You're going to need a flexible hero pool coming up in September. Who knows what's going to be meta? You could have Hanzo nerfed into the ground. It could be Symmetra, Hammond galore. We don't know what to expect. So
you mean Wrecking Ball.
The Wrecking Ball meta is coming.
They have to change it.
We'll see what happens.
Officially.
But what sort of hero pools were you guys maybe looking for, focusing on when picking up these players?
Well, at least with less about the hero pools, I want one defined and core roster that we can kind of flex around. So especially in the the meta we're in right now, you're always going to have one main tank, you're always going to have one off tank, and you're always going to have a main support. So we really want to find that core of a team that we can keep together on those roles, and will also carry the same comm structure. So if we replace different pieces of it, it stays the same, but allows us to be flexible regardless. So keeping with the 7 people there, we've got that tank core, plus we want to build up the healer core that can kind of define the signature of it. So it's less about, I suppose, flexible hero pools, because when we are allowed the 7-man roster itself, we've got what we would consider the starting 6, and then we can have that last person who either needs to flex between whatever role we need. In this case, it's going to be, Mangachu. He's pretty much known for being the silly hero specialist. He's played Torb in, 2017 World Cup Grand Finals, and he did pretty well. And with Hammond and Symmetra come out, well, I've asked all the players, what's your interest in playing Symmetra? What's your interest in playing Hammond? And especially with the scrims that came out, or were streamed rather, on Friday, most people noticed that we were switching between Agilities and Mangachu quite frequently. And that was probably one of the more interesting ones, because they have their own play styles. Agilities plays a very clean hero style where he likes to work with the resources of his team. Doesn't like to push the boundaries, just kind of like to work with them. And when he sees an opportunity, he'll capitalize on it right away. And Mangachu's, much more aggressive style, trying to be the playmaker, and also just a lot more creative, if you could say that. So, with us having the 7-man and, Hammond and Symmetra in the mix, Mangachu gives us a lot of flexibility, regardless of what heroes are released, what heroes are reworked. The Torbjorn rework is being discussed. It's kind of rumored around there. He also played... and Mangachu played Sombra for XL2 in Contenders, if you guys remember. So having just Mangachu alone on the roster with his flexibility allows us to I don't see a single composition being outside of our starting sevens hero pool, regardless of who we pick.
No one can play Bulldozer yet.
There,
So-
tell you, there's only. Let me just look at my spreadsheet. I think there was only 2 people who said they weren't interested in playing Hammond, and I think both of them.
Oh,
It looks so fun.
we're gonna have a bunch of Hammond 1v1s and see who's the
We
best Hammond
had-
player in the team.
Oh, yeah. So we had 2 not interested in learning Hammond. Everyone else was like, "Hell yes, I want to."
He looks fun. He looks so much fun.
He's a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Sure.
And what
Yeah, I saw
about
your video
you got
of, like-
Symmetra too? Like, is anyone out of the game for Symmetra?
Sorry, what'd you say about Symmetra?
I mean, like, you have 2 people that don't want to play Hammond. Is there anyone that doesn't want to play Symmetra?
XQC.
Oh.
He said no to Symmetra.
But yeah, with the whole new teleporter, with Hammond, like a lot of new strategies can definitely be developed in the next 2 months for groups, 4 months for the finals if we make it through. Which, come on, we probably we gotta have confidence in ourselves. We'll make it.
Guys,
there.
oh my god. KarQ has to redo all his 1-tip videos for
Oh my
Symmetra
God.
and Sombra. Oh,
I'm sure
Oh,
he's
man.
so
I-
disappointed
I-
about that. Weren't you
I-
running out anyway, KarQ? You were almost
I
done.
was, but then I was just gonna reboot the series. Then I'm golden for another,
You're-
6 months or a year. Reboot the series with a different kind of theme.
Yeah,
So-
but before we
Okay.
move on, we are looking to, Surefour, for example, is a guy who's known for his Widowmaker in recent history, but
Mhm.
we've got a lot of people on the team with a lot of deep hero pool. When you think Surefour, you think Widowmaker, but that's because that's what we've seen recently. But
Yeah.
even thinking back to last World
Yeah,
Cup, we've seen him
historically,
on
he's
Bastion,
been-
we've seen him on McCree. He has a lot of
He can
really
do
great
anything.
heroes.
Yeah, he
So-
can do
Monster,
anything.
yeah.
Yeah, we're
He's Genji,
gonna
he played Tracer.
we're not gonna be meta slaves. We'll just put it that way.
So you were more
60
attracted.
PS.
You were more attracted to the way that these guys play together and their play style, rather than how these guys are flexible in their hero pools.
And we want
Okay.
them to be comfortable with one another, right?
Right.
Just taking 6 people, if you take just statistically the 6 most individually competent on their heroes and mash them together, 6 people a team does not make. You need to have 6 people working together to have a team. So trying to just find the 6 or the 7, I guess, depending on who. Anyway, finding the people who most naturally work together based on their play styles, based on their communication styles, based on their personality. That's a big part of building a team outside of just who is the best at each role.
Well, that makes plenty
Yeah.
of sense.
There was a comment, we were scrimming and Sword was talking about the team he was spectating, Danny was talking about the teams they were spectating and the differences between them. And after me and Jayne and KarQ had kind of chimed in and listened to them speak, one team sounded like they were a bunch of strangers trying out for a team, trying to impress the coaches and such. And another team just seemed to kind of go with the flow. They were legitimately scrimming versus just kind of doing whatever, trying to make flashy plays or to stand out, right? We were looking for people that were cooperative and had strong fundamentals, and not just kind of out here to be selfish or kind of to do things to sway us or like are uncharacteristic of what you'd be doing in a game you're actually trying to win. And I think we did a really good job of picking those guys up. I think our teams are warming up to each other rather quickly and working together rather fast.
Well, I'm excited to see what the meta is going to be like and how, with the flexible players that you have, what they will answer that call. Whether it's Hammond, Symmetra, if that's what we're going into, then let's get it.
Could you imagine
Oh my
what that
God.
game would look like? It'd be like Overwatch 2. It'd be so different from what we watch now.
It's
Symmetra's
so
like banned in a lot of tournaments that I've been casting in recently. So
Sim.
it's weird. I wonder if they would consider banning something until it gets reworked, but I don't think that would be the case. But let's go on to this.
I suspect Symmetra and Hammond will be banned for contenders and be allowed for World Cup, but that's just my guess.
I
I
think
haven't
that
seen
sounds
them
about
ban
right.
anything yet, I think.
No, not Blizzard, but maybe. Anyways,
We'll
moving
see. Let's go on to the supports now, and you've narrowed it down to quite, again, big names: Joe Meister, Verbo, Crimzo, Banny, and Rolf. I'm gonna butcher that name, Rolf. But,
I realized it was floor backwards. And I'm like, oh.
on. Oh my god!
oh my god! Today I
Is
learned.
Oh my goodness.
Is it floor backwards? Is that what it's
It's-
supposed to be?
Floor. I think I
Well-
heard someone say he named it because it's floor backwards. I'm like,
That makes-
oh, okay.
why though, but anyway, so it can be tough to stand out as a support, but you got KarQ is mainly a support main, and Jayne, I think you play a lot of support, so you guys know what you're looking at. But what were you looking for during tryouts or in previous performances that you picked those players?
I want to say for support specifically, the meta is very. The way the meta is, there are like two main supports, Mercy and Zenyatta being like the primary core of almost 90% of the compositions. It's a bit of a shame we don't get to see too much of the Lucios or the Moras or the Annas, although they do have their place in specific comps. For the most part, for almost all these scrims that we've seen of these players, we did run the cookie cutter Mercy and Zenyatta. So I guess with the way what we're trying to look for the Mercy especially is leading, calling, and just the way they move and use her kit to the max, to the, what do you call it? Like the peak of their potential. Yeah, the potential, right? And a lot of people kind of dismiss Mercy and be like, oh, low skill hero. But there is like a night and day difference between some of the Mercies we saw. For example, Benny compared to some of the people we had in the open tryouts when we first did the first couple of scrim blocks. So just watching their movements, their mechanics, their finesse as Mercy, and then on the flip side for Zenyatta, their transcendence, discipline, where they're moving with their team, especially because Zenyatta is like a big prime target for a lot of enemies to jump on you, for example. So just the way the Zenyatta's move, they calling out their discords, their mechanics, of course. Just looking at all that, and of course how they work with the rest of the team. So
basically, if KarQ when he was ringing back harder, he didn't make the cut. Instead, that was it.
Yeah, since KarQ actually participated in the trials, which was really actually
he was good.
It was
I didn't feel like I had a good
very
impact.
well, but it was also gave us a very interesting perspective of the players that we wouldn't have had otherwise. And I think that if I ever run tryouts again in the future, I would definitely have a ringer or a sleeper being ready to just like report back or spy from the inside. It was so good having an actual player's very honest feedback about who they played with and played against, knowing that they themselves didn't have anything on the line. That was really cool.
Yeah, community lead turned out to be such an asset in the the trials and everything. It was such a surprise.
Yeah. I think I was part of like one block for 2 hours. I played a couple of games. It got to also I played one of them. Yeah, I can't recall if who on the roster we believe is right now was on my team at the time and who I played against, because I do believe most of them were from the open tryouts, and obviously only Kevin made it through. But I do believe the majority of them were not the Owl and Contender players we see right now. But it did give me a good perspective on the first round of filtering through the people and.
So with the 303 kind of meta being right now, are you guys looking at an Ana player? Have you guys checked out if any of these guys can play a solid Ana? Besides, KarQ, you're not on the
I'm coming
roster. You're gonna just straight up come in?
We have a lot of Ana players on Team Canada.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I believe Rolf played a ton of Ana in the past.
Rolf plays a ton of Ana, yeah.
And it might not even be meta when time rolls around,
Yeah.
Like 3-3 might not be a
Who
thing.
knows? I don't know, yeah.
Yeah.
Joe Meister and Banny both play Ana. So.
And insiders, at least from what I know, scrimming with contenders and stuff, a lot of teams are actually straying away from it because they've been finding some pretty competent answers. So hopefully, when World Cup runs around, we don't just see kind of like two balls like throwing themselves at each other all the time and stuff like that.
Okay. I guess
Can I say that on the show? Can I say what I said? Anyway,
I'm just laughing because it was a weird analogy.
Jayne is
weird
like,
images in my head.
I'm talking about wrecking balls, two wrecking balls, two
swinging
hamsters,
Right.
Keep digging.
two hamster balls.
Keep
Right.
digging.
You're not getting out of this one. There's one more thing with the supports as well. It's also good to see if any of them could flex onto heroes outside of support, because I think a couple strategies on certain maps can actually, Junkertown in particular, you can actually pull off the Zenyatta and actually run a third tank and actually have a single healer Mercy. So when looking through the supports that we've narrowed it down to, it's also valuable to know that they can pretty much all flex onto an off tank or any other role that we need for certain strategies. So that's also a big factor in our decision. So
yeah, that is. I totally forgot about the single support. I haven't seen that in like a long time, but it's good for them to flex onto a tank or anything else, not be like a one-trick support, of course. No one-tricks allowed on this team, apparently. Let's also go into, well, your final roster looks very similar to last year's Team Canada roster, which did very well. So what will the committee focus on improving in the upcoming scrims?
Well, there's we're not going to be scrimming that hard to start with. I'll clarify that one. At least until the playoffs are done. So we want to make sure that we're not loading the Overwatch League guys too hard. They're right now, most of them are preparing 6 days a week for the playoffs. So we have the fantastic decision of either giving them a 7-day work week or making them scrim like 12 hours on a day, which is neither of these are good choices. So in the very early days, we're just going to make sure that the team is scrimming together to be comfortable with one another, just getting used to one another's play style, correcting any like major issues there are, but we're not even going to touch strategy for a long time. Even after the Overwatch League playoffs are done themselves, we still don't know the maps. We don't know the map pool. We don't know what the patch is going to be. We don't know which heroes are going to be allowed. So we'll be working a lot of the actual just team building stuff until we have that information. Once we have that information, we'll start actually moving into the strategy. And then once we get closer to the actual group stages themselves, and even during the group stages, Sword, who I brought on as the assistant coach for Team Canada, is really good at scouting. When I was kind of looking for an assistant coach to help with Team Canada, I asked for some portfolios or sample pieces, whatever you'd like to call it. And I was really, really impressed with Sword's scouting of various contenders teams when he was participating. And so what we're planning to have Sword do, because we're not just building one team, like we are going to have the 7-man event roster as dictated by Blizzard, but we are also we're hoping that the people who aren't on the event roster are going to be able to come together as a 6-man sister team that we can use to scrim internally, in-house scrims. And the benefit that this gives us is that if Sword scouts Team USA, for example, in the group stages, then he can come up with the strategies that they were running, and then we can practice them in-house. So Sword would find out what the strategies are, the play styles, work with the sister team to kind of emulate those styles and compositions. And then, for example, if the main roster really sucks at Horizon and Lunar Colony, if necessary, instead of, scrimming somebody else who's going to be wanting to do a different map, we could do, if we really felt like it, 2 hours of Horizon and Lunar Colony scrims against the strategies that we are expected to see in the upcoming matches. So, we are definitely looking to counter-strat and study opponents in order to actually prepare specific strategies or variations on our strategies in order to give us the best chance to win.
Well, that makes sense. Starting with the communication synergy, then moving up to, okay, what patch are we playing on? And I hope that they give you guys enough notice, on
I suspect
what
they'll give us enough notice. It's like our group stages aren't until September 7th to 9th. So we're talking months where we've got time. We've got time.
Anyone else got something to add on what you might add to your scrims?
I think as of right now, again, with a lot of things being known and a lot of things being kind of tentative as to what we'll play, what will be banned, if anything would be banned at all, what map rules and sort of things like that. Currently, we're looking just, I think, to build more fundamentals, more team synergy, and kind of work around our players' weaknesses and kind of bringing those up to standard. And from there, with those stronger fundamentals moving in, we'll be ready to kind of tackle more map-specific things or composition-specific things and such and such. And yeah, like Jayne mentioned, we have a wonderful support staff that they brought on to help us with that, to really take a load off our shoulders and for us to focus on our other lives and priorities, because all of us here have other responsibilities. Like KarQ has a full-time stream, Jayne has a stream and other things he's working on as well behind the scenes, and I'm obviously coaching MAM Academy, and from these these other responsibilities will be distracting at times, but because we have such a strong, robust staff that we can kind of juggle everything and not be overloaded.
Yeah, I liked how you guys brought on more members to the committee, or I guess the part of the team, to help out in other departments. And Sword, and even you, Renanthera, you got brought on, and you guys are all filling gaps of when someone's busy doing something else. But
yeah.
For the future of Team Canada, I know it's kind of far away and there's a lot of rosters still not announced, surprisingly, but there's still going to be some stacked competition, just judging by the Overwatch League and Contenders talent we have right now. So for you guys, which team will be the team to beat at this year's World Cup?
Well, in qualifiers, we're playing the US, and I think they're pretty damn good. You know, they have access to a lot of the Overwatch League players, right? They have enough players to run like 4 sister teams if they wanted, right? So they have a lot to choose from and a lot to work with. But you know, moving forward, right? I think there's a small, especially with the current political climate, Canadian and North America, or like American tensions. So we want to be the better Western team. We want to move out of groups as first seed. And if we were to run into them again, then you know we want to beat them again too. Like it's no question that I think for me personally, USA is my biggest target. You know, South Korea, everyone's going to target South Korea, right? They're the reigning champions, are really good, so that's the obvious answer. But for me, you know, we played them twice in group stages. I want to beat them twice, and if we run into them a third time, I want to beat them then too.
All right, KarQ, how about you? Who's your team to beat?
I'm on board with Ren. I think we want to focus on the here and now, and our group stage does consist of, I believe, Brazil, Austria, Switzerland, USA, and Norway. And I do feel that, in my personal opinion, that USA is our biggest challenge. So we want to focus on them, play them twice, beat them twice, and then we'll worry about whoever has to come face us later on. So whether that be South Korea or maybe they get upset by another team, who knows? But for now,
who do you think would upset South Korea?
In their group stage, who are they? Who's in their group right now? Let me take a quick peep.
Even outside of group stages, just in general. Us,
Canada.
Besides us. Yeah.
That's biased.
I don't know. I think
China in their group. Because
Oh, yeah,
China's
China's
my
in their
pick for
group.
the sleeper, right? They've got, you know,
they got
right
Finland.
now-
Finland's in their group actually.
Oh,
I do
Finland
believe
is in their group.
Finland does have a pretty good
Finland's easy.
team.
Finland's easy.
Finland's easy.
Easy.
Okay.
Bro.
Quoted. This is gonna be quoted.
Quoted.
And
Ooh.
Quote me now, Finland.
Hey, Reddit, include me in the clip.
Okay.
Hey, Reddit.
Finland's okay. No, but I'm sure. No, Finland's great, but like I realistically don't see many teams kind of upsetting them in the group.
Is China in the group stage with Korea?
Yeah, I
it
think
is.
you're right
It is
there.
Russia,
Yeah, so
Finland,
most people
Chinese.
right now are judging Chinese Overwatch and esports.
Oh, it's different. It's different. It's
based off
Chinese
Shanghai
Taipei.
Dragons. Oh,
Chinese Taipei. That's
Oh,
different than
that changes
China.
the game. That changes
It's
the
different
game.
from China. Yeah, China's in a different group. They're
Still, my answer doesn't change though. I think that people are underestimating the Chinese World Cup team just because the Shanghai Dragons didn't do well.
that's true.
Shanghai
That's true.
Dragons had problems outside of
Oh,
not
yeah.
having enough national talent. So if the World Cup the World Cup team is properly run and you know they get some good coaching, there's a lot of potential for China to be a real threat.
Yeah, just think about their size, like how many people they have to pick from. I'm sure they can find 6 people that could contend with South Korea.
I feel like everyone's
fair.
team to beat is Korea, just because Koreans in Overwatch.
Well, it's also just Korea's like in
Infrastructure.
some way it's also Korea's decision whether or not they want to, you know, win easily. In which case they just like pick up
Here's New York.
New York and they
New York.
just paint it South Korean colors and they go, "This is our team." If they do that, well, everyone's
We're boned.
we're boned, okay? But if they actually play nice and they take some Koreans from different teams, you know, then we have a chance.
You're not
But yeah,
tomorrow,
if they
actually.
just like pick up New York,
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a problem.
they've got
That's
the
a problem.
synergy. They've got everything already like worked
you
out.
know, they've got a head
Once they
start.
play
They have
together.
more resources. They have. So
We're gonna
It's,
be sitting, like,
y-
waiting for the announcement to come up. Be like, please don't be New York. Please,
please don't be like New York plus Carpe or something.
You're like, oh, that's much better.
Yeah, so much better.
Yeah.
I haven't been watching a ton of Korean contenders, so I don't know who would be a good pick from there. But basically, New York,
Anyone
I
from
guess.
X6 is really good.
Oh.
Not
Yeah.
Sparkle.
Oh, because of this is not a political show.
'Cause yours are the best guests over. But I will wish you guys luck in your upcoming scrims and hopefully tons
You're
of
Canadian
success.
too.
I know.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
Yes.
you're
Go
totally not biased
Canada.
as to who's gonna win.
No.
Exactly.
Yeah,
No,
I
I'm
was.
gonna flip it. Who do you think's gonna win the World Cup?
Oh, obviously Canada, right?
Thank you.
It was awkward. I was interviewing Team Australia, and it was Canada that knocked him out of groups. So I was like, "Oh, who's your team to beat?" And he's like, "Oh, Team Canada." I was like, "Oh yeah, I watched that match." He's like, "Yeah, you were
Bring it,
cheering for
Australia.
Canada." And I was like, "Yes,
Bring it on.
go Canada!"
Bring it on, Australia. Bring it on.
You think you guys are gonna get MVP trophy again this year?
Tell you what, we'll challenge the committee to a 6v6. Our committee
I'm
versus
down.
their committee.
Oh
Yeah.
God.
Calling it right now. Clip it on Reddit. Team Canada formally
What's with you
challenges
guys
Team
on Reddit?
Australia to Community
Guys on
66.
Reddit.
Yeah. We have Sword, Danny, myself, you,
Me.
Nathan, and ID. We've got 6.
Oh, we have ID.
Hey,
ID's
team.
player.
Hey, Australian committee, Australian World Cup committee. You've been formally challenged.
Uh-huh.
I don't know how big their
You have
committee
3
is.
days to
You
respond.
have 3 days.
With your blood.
Bigger committee.
Okay, I'll leave it at that, guys. Good luck in your scrims. Tons of success at World Cup. You guys should check out their stream. All their information will be in the description of this video. Well, any last shout outs, everybody? You guys can plug your streams, YouTubes, anything?
I guess I'll go first because I have the smallest fan base. Ooh, nice plug.
Whoa.
All of MAM Academy, coaches and players alike, and our bus staff, Florida Mayhem, our owners and our bosses, and all the Canadian fans. Also, any other teams committees that want to challenge us, we'll take on
Oh
anyone.
my god. And stream it. You guys better stream it too.
Oh, yeah, we'll stream it.
Oh, it'll be streamed.
It'll be streamed.
Yeah.
Jayne, your turn to plug.
My turn to plug.
Well, you had the mug. I'm assuming you're ready.
I don't know. I'm Jayne. I stream occasionally, I guess. I love you all.
Greatest plug.
Sure,
KarQ.
Jayne.
Yeah, I'm
KarQ.
KarQ. Follow
right.
us on Team Canada OW on Twitter.
Oh,
That's
see,
what I'll
he
plug.
actually plugged the team's Twitter. No one
Oh,
else did.
community lead,
Get it right.
KarQ.
Oh, that
Get it
is
right.
his job. That
Lead.
is his job.
He's the community
Follow
lead.
that.
Yeah, just doing
Follow
his
that.
job. Doing his job.
And check out KarQ's
And,
stream, of course. But this will end today's interview. Thank you guys so much for coming on. This was Overwatch Contenders Daily. I'm LemonKiwi, and I'll see you guys next week.
Farewell.